First of all, on behalf of IEEE MTTS and APS Society, Kerala chapter, we extend our warm welcome to our chief guest and speaker, Dr. Soumabha Mukherjee. And thank you, Dr. Soumabha, for spending some time from your busiest schedule to grace these occasions. And we are very fortunate today to have you. And today the topic on which Dr. Soumabha is going to speak, that is applications of substrate integrated circuits in microwave and millimeter wave frequencies. So without wasting much time, let me introduce the speaker to the participants. So Dr. Soumabha Mukherjee was born in Kolkata, West Bengal, India, in May 1987. He received his BTech degree in Electronics and Communications Engineering from West Bengal University of Technology in 2009. Subsequently, he received his MTech degree in Electronics and Telecommunications Engineering from Bengal Engineering and Science University, Shibpur in 2011, with specialization in microwave and communication engineering, and the PhD degree from Department of Electrical Engineering, IIT Kanpur in 2016. Since 2016, he has been an assistant professor with the Electrical Engineering Department, IIT Jodhpur, India. His current research interest includes substrate integrated coaxial line antennas and circuits, substrate integrated waveguide antennas, multi-frequency and broadband antennas, and chipless RFID. Dr. Mukherjee was a recipient of the European Microwave Student Grant in UMC 2013 and EUMC, that is European Microwave Corporations, 2014. He also received the International Travel Grant from Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. He is also a recipient of Young Scientist Award, APRASC 2019, that is WSHI Asia Pacific Radio Science Conference, instituted by International and Union of Radio Science. He is also a reviewer of plenty of high quality journals like IEEE Transactions on Antenna and Propagations, IEEE Antenna Wireless Propagation Letters, etc. So, Dr. Soumabha Mukherjee, I cordially welcome you in today's webinar. Now the stage is yours. So please begin talk.
Thank you very much, Dr. De, for such warm welcome, and thank you for your invitation. It's my pleasure to present in front of you all. And in fact, IEEE Kerala APS section is one of the most active section in India. So it's my pleasure to be with you all. So first of all, let me wish those who are faculties here, let me wish Happy Teachers Day to you all. We all are in the same business of building the nation, the future of the nation. So it's a warm wish from my side to you all. We are doing a great job. Okay, so you can see the screen, I hope, the slide. So I'm trying to navigate the mouse. I hope it is visible to you so that I can show you whatever presentation portion I want to show you. So the title of the talk is Application of Substrate Integrated Circuits in Microwave and Millimeter Wave Application. So I hope microwave and millimeter wave frequencies are known to you. We will just see some of these. I have spent some of the slides for explaining those parts, and then we will go into the details of this substrate integrated waveguide. And I am from IIT Jodhpur, Department of Electrical Engineering. So I have one slide for that also. I'll show where I am from. So this is my institute, the administrative building, the most iconic building of IIT Jodhpur. That's why I wanted to show that in the slide. So basically, I am here in the district of Rajasthan, and here is the Jodhpur situated. And if you want to see the picturesque view of the Jodhpur, this is it. So Jodhpur is actually simultaneously called Blue City as well as the Sun City. Sun City is no need to explain. It's in front of the desert, so it gets the most of the days in the year, gets the sunny weather, so that's why it is Sun City. And the name Blue City comes from this figure. So actually, from the fort, the famous Mehrangarh Fort, you can see the blue buildings, which are the oldest one, and that's why the name Blue City. And talking about our institute, it was established in 2008 and situated in Karwar, which is a little bit outskirts of the Jodhpur. Currently, we have, I think this number has changed now. It is around 2,300 students, 160 faculty members, 12 departments, and 7 interdisciplinary research platform. So this is just some other views. We have a iconic clock tower also, and these are, yeah. So we have some greenery here, which is contrary to the common notion that there is no greenery. And Department of Electrical Engineering currently have 2 MTech program, and also we have MTech PhD and dual degree programs. So those who are interested can definitely check our website for the more details. So this is the outline of my talk. I'll first introduce very briefly about the microwave and millimeter wave applications. What are the daily applications you can think about from this frequency range? I'll discuss about this substrate integrated technology, substrate integrated circuit technology. And typically I'll discuss 2 technology on which our works has been there. So one is SIW, substrate integrated waveguide, and another one is substrate integrated coaxial line. And then I'll try to conclude. Yeah, so this is a very picturesque view or pictorial representation of the this variation of the frequency ranges. So we are starting from kilohertz and kilohertz, and then we are increasing slowly. And as you can see, the wavelength is decreasing. That is, you know that it is C by F is the wavelength. So C is the speed of light, which is constant. So if you increase the frequency, your wavelength will decrease. So around kilohertz range, you will get the wavelength around in a range of the building. And if you go into the some high end of the megahertz, you will get along the height of the human body will be the wavelength. And when you go to the microwave, it is actually in the centimeter length, the wavelength. So it is around the butterfly. And then it's the higher end of the microwave, actually your wavelength will be millimeter. So that is called millimeter wave. And then as you increase your frequency, you will go into the terahertz and then actually optical domain. So in the optical domain, the wavelength is around in the protozoa. And then if you go more bigger, molecules level, the wavelength is so small. So at this level, basically the wave nature dominates, the photonic nature dominates. So you have to make different physics for that. So we will be only discussing this part here in the microwave and millimeter wave range, and we will not go into this part. Different technology should be used for these parts as well as in the terahertz also. So we will be focusing in here. Okay. So what is the specialty here? So microwave communication, I hope, is known to you all. You all are using this in daily life. For example, in your mobile phone, in your other Wi-Fi. I'll show some of them in the next slides, what you are using right now. So typically, it is a line of sight communication, and therefore, as the line of sight is not there, then there is a limitation. So there are multiple techniques how to mitigate that. And if you go into the higher end, there will be huge absorption by the atmospheric absorption will be there. So that is in the millimeter wave, one of the major issues, and there are some techniques to mitigate that. So I'll discuss some of them. So let me go directly to the application part. Before going into the application part, I'll just want you to show how much the microwave circuits or microwave systems has developed over the years. So if you know, I hope you have some basic idea about the microwave based applications and the circuits. So you all know what are the basic transmission lanes possible for microwave frequency range. One of them is waveguide. Okay, so the left one figure, what you are seeing is based on a waveguide based circuit. Here is an antenna, and then there are transceiver circuits. So typically it is a radar circuit actually, and it was used in World War II. So this is actually one example of the first time people started using microwave-based circuits for their application purpose. Before that, it was mostly experimental. People are not that much interested in the wireless communication business. After World War II, then people started realizing, okay, if it can be used for work, it can be used for the commercial too. And then people started developing it. In the 80s, then the microstrip technology came, which became much popular. And nowadays, most of the circuits you will see in the microstrip technology actually. And if I show you, this is where we stand typically. Actually, not today, maybe some years back. Today, in fact, we are evolving into some other technologies as well. But as I said, the microstrip is the most, established technology nowadays. So this is what it looks like. And typically, this is a Ku band satellite television dish. So the dish TV you are using, inside it, this will be something like this. So you can actually see there are 2 ports for transmit and receive, and there are multiple transistors as well. So this is another advancement what you need to think about. You see there are filters as well. So basically, with the evolution of the technology, there was the evolution of the semiconductor industry as well. So at this time, in the World War time, there are big tube-based components typically was used. And with time, semiconductor industry evolved, and now we see everything in planar form. You see all the oscillator circuits. So in case of transmitter, there will be LNA and power amplifier and all those things. Sorry, in the receiver, there will be LNA and the transmitter will be power amplifier. But all those things came into transistor, solid state form. So it is very compact, tiny, and in the planar circuits, you can do it, make the whole circuits very compact and handy. So we have come from here to here. And what's next? So that I'll show with the help of the current need of the technology, what is the scenario today. Okay, so if I broadly classify the microwave frequency ranges, actually there are typically well-known nomenclature. So mostly people are currently using these bands, L band, S band, and C band, which is from 1 to 2 gigahertz and 2 to 4 and 4 to 8. So mostly most of our technologies are within this range actually. X band typically people use for the defense purpose, and higher end of the Ku and K band people sometimes use. For example, I showed the satellite dish TV, so that is one of the example. But now actually people have started looking into the higher end band where the wavelength is in the order of millimeter. You see in these ranges, these L band and S band ranges, it is around in the range of the centimeter. And then as you go into the higher end, the wavelength is in the millimeter. These frequencies were currently are not being used. So it is unlicensed spectrum, and there is huge advantage about that. And therefore people have started using it. So we are also looking into this band as well, U, V, and E band, which is 40 to 100 gigahertz, even more than that. People are also talking about terahertz, how to use those things. So why is so? So let me go into the details of the little bit detail of the application part, and then we will understand why we require these application and these frequency bands to be used. Yeah, so microwave application, first of the application is point-to-point communication. I think in many of your institute, you have seen this type of instrument, which is nothing but a communication from wireless communication circuits. There will be some antenna, and there will be feed network, which will be connected to your devices, and you can communicate with other buildings and in your campus, maybe even in the mobile tower to tower also, you can do the same thing. I think there is one picture of that also. So wireless network, Wi-Fi network is another example, which I think all of you are using right now. Communication. Video relay network. So from tower to tower, you will find this type of antennas, which is actually relaying between different towers and then communicating with other towers as well. I hope you can see my screen. Okay. And then there is a collision avoidance radar system. So there are different applications of radar which are using these microwave frequency ranges. One of them is this collision avoidance. I'll show one more example of regarding this automobile. So yeah, I think that figure is not here. So you know that the police are using this speedometer. That is nothing but also an application of microwave. It's actually a Doppler radar. It sends a pulse, receives the Doppler shifted pulse and detects the Doppler shift, and that's how it detects the speed. The similar type of technology can be applied to this car-to-car communication as well. So that is the collision avoidance system you can talk about. And next are the two applications. This is also, you have seen in many of your institute, there are automatic door openers, which is nothing but again a Doppler radar. So it will be having some antenna which will be detecting your movement, and then accordingly it will activate it and your door will open, and you will have this microwave oven, which is household in almost all of you probably are using. So these are typical ranges of microwave application, and if you minutely see, these all are commercial application. But as I have shown, it started with the defense, but then people realized it has lots of commercial applications to offer, and that's how people have started evolving different technologies and application and instruments, and that's how microwave engineers have got into the industry. Okay, so if I go into the mobile communication, we started from 1G and then evolved into 2G, 3G, and 4G. These are the comparison sheets. And if I just focus on some of the typical things, one is speed. So if you see, in 1G case, the speed was some few kbps. The speed kept on increasing, and now at 4G, we are talking about 100 Mbps. Currently, we are using something like this speed, okay? And in 1G, there was no internet. Then typically narrowband internet came, then broadband internet came, and now we are using ultra broadband internet. Of course, the bandwidth has to be increased. As you can see, it has increased over the generations. So day by day, we are actually increasing the bandwidth, okay? So what's next? You all have probably heard of the 5G. So what is 5G is going to offer? Well, the 5G offering is much more bigger than this, only this bandwidth and mobile communication. So if I talk about 5G, it has three different distinct components. One is enhanced mobile broadband. What is that means? That we can show by this figure. So basically in 3G, it was in kbps, then we came to Mbps, and now we are talking about Gbps. Tens of Gbps, maybe multiples of 10 Gbps. That is enhanced mobile broadband. Then there is another component is ultra reliable low latency. What it is about? So it is mission critical communication for different particular type of communication. Suppose there are some hazardous mines where you have to send your machine, and that machine you are wirelessly communicating. There are these are mission critical. So whenever you are controlling it, that machine should be able to respond at the same, almost at the same time. It should be around live feed kind of feature. So that means their latency should be very low, and therefore the speed of the communication should be very high. So that is another component of the 5G. And the third one is massive machine-to-machine communication. It has application in industrial IoT as well as in massive IoT business. So people are talking about millions of sensors which will start communicating between them. And of course, for such a huge amount of data, you will require much more bandwidth to handle those things. So that is 5G. So 5G is not only about mobile, it's about different applications. And if I put all those things in the common picture, this is somewhat, you can say, a representation of that. So you can see here that we are talking about smart transport system where these cars are talking to each other. They are talking to the street light. In the hospital, there are smart management. So all the patients are being tracked, and all those things are controlled by the tower. In the home, there are 3D video and audio. Then there are these AR and VR application as well. Then in the industry, there are multiples of sensors which are communicating between them, and that data again goes into the data center, as well as the high-speed planes are going, and there are also enhanced broadband connections are being given. So all these applications are part of 5G. So 5G is much bigger. Now, if I ask what we would require to deliver this, there is the this is the question which will be answered by the technology which I am going to talk about. So basically, if you think about it, itself microwave frequency ranges cannot support this much amount of data. The reason is it has been already exhausted by different applications. As I have said, ALS and C-band, almost most of the parts are exhausted, and people are now looking into some other frequency ranges where they can invest to design their circuits so that they can deliver this type of application. Okay, so we are going to look into the millimeter wave, because millimeter wave is unlicensed spectrum, currently is not in use, so we can assign a huge bandwidth to some particular application, and then probably we can meet those applications. So before going into the details, I'd like to show you that what actually people have already developed in these frequency ranges. So this is a 5G demonstration in Tokyo. Actually, the Japan wanted to demonstrate their 5G communication in 2020 Olympic, which is now postponed. But from the last year or last to last year, they have started demonstrating their 5G communication. And this is when I went to Asia Pacific Microwave Conference in 2018. And then I saw this in a shopping mall. So I just took a picture, and that's what I wanted to show you. So they have already built 4.5 gigahertz network as well as the 20 gigahertz network, which they are supposed to put in different places. And they were already showing some applications like 8K video and mission critical control. So here actually they were showing that they are actually controlling this tractor in the mine from the control room. So no one is here. This is a hazardous place for the health of the worker. So they don't want them to be there. They will be in the control room. They'll be just controlling it, and it will be on a live, it will be controlling it. So this type of application will require ultra low latency. And that's what they were claiming that they have already developed it. So this is the target. This is where we will require the technological advancement. So as I said, millimeter wave communication will be one of the crucial player for this type of communication. Now, what are the challenges in millimeter wave communication? So let us again go back to the transceiver part. So if you see in the left hand side, there is a transceiver which is at 2.4 gigahertz. Okay, so this is very common nowadays. 2.4 is a industrial ISM band, industrial scientific and medical band, and there are very well-known circuits are already available, and the transistor or semiconductor technology is also very well established. So what you can see is here is a common transceiver which has a antenna, and then that is fed to the multiple of these chips which are connected, and then ultimately you get this digital circuit. Okay, now if I want the same with the millimeter, what we would need? Of course, this microstrip technology will not work at the millimeter wave. It will work. It will means you can design it, but there will be some problems such as radiation loss. There will be some surface wave concept will come into the picture, because the microwave is an open structure. So there are lots of disadvantages which you have to mitigate if you want to design it in millimeter wave. So more common structure would be waveguide. But if you try to design a transceiver with the waveguide at millimeter as well, your circuit will look like this. And definitely this type of circuit you cannot carry in your pocket for your mobile phone. So the enhanced mobile broadband, what I was talking about, even the IoT sensor nodes, how is it going to happen with this? It's not very worthy. You see, there are two antennas, and then there are many components where you have to fit your semiconductor device as well, probably, and then it's a very challenging task, and it will be very costly affair. Now, there are people who have started some solutions. For example, if you see this Pasternak 60 gigahertz transmitter module, you will see the semiconductor part they have put in a PCB board, and they have used a microstrip or planar to non-planar waveguide transition. So the most of the part is in waveguide, and some part, whatever is this ADC part, they are in PCB. But there is a catch. The catch is this transition between waveguide to planar circuit. That is not very easy to do. If you see these typical concepts of waveguide to planar transition, you will see there are these type of complex structures are required, and when you go into the millimeter wave, these structures are in the range of the millimeter as well, and a small fraction of the error in this millimeter wave dimensions will degrade your performance. And you can see a example here how much small of these components are that you can imagine. So this conclusion is it will be high manufacturing cost, high volume as well, because waveguide will be bulky, and complicated transition. So this is not that much worthy solution for the commercial application if you are thinking about at this frequency range. So you can see the details of these transitions here in these papers. You are welcome to go into there and see. So what is the solution then? So there comes this concept of substrate integrated circuits, which can give you a better solution for commercial application. So the beginning of this substrate integrated circuit was this event. So at 1994, actually there was a Japanese patent. What they did, it's not very rocket science. What they did was, at that time also, the plated through hole technology, PTH technology, was well established. So what they did, they demonstrated that if you put rows of vias in a planar substrate, it can work as a sidewall, a continuous conductor sidewall. It can implement conductor sidewall in a planar substrate. The moment they realized that, they could demonstrate that yes, we can use it as a waveguide, and therefore we can make waveguides in a planar substrate. So this was the first report of that. Then people started using or evolving this technology. So people have made multi-layered configuration, and they have made waveguide structure. So this was in the paper, laminated waveguide, and people have also started using parallel plate waveguide and used it for this array antenna for 60 GHz wireless LAN or car collision avoidance radar. So these are, people have started working on that, and then people thought that okay, this is a good candidate for the applications what we are looking for. It's typically, if you talk about this wireless LAN at 60 GHz, which is WiGig, and the car collision avoidance radar at 77 GHz, this is a very good candidate. So then people started using this concept of substrate integrated circuits. So I'll first discuss about the substrate integrated waveguide, and then I'll go into the other technologies as well. So this is the technology background. So you don't have a very good technology at millimeter wave unless you want to use the bulky waveguide non-planar circuits, and you don't have the planar one. So basically this SIW, substrate integrated waveguide, is a bridging the gap between the microstrip and the waveguide, and you can generate different circuits in your planar substrate, which you can use in your handheld devices. So that's the importance of this technology. And if you see typically how it looks like, this is how it will look. So typically you will get in your market commercially available dielectric substrates will be of two-sided copper cladding. So that can work as the top layer and the bottom layer, and you only need to implement the side one, which you can do by putting rows of metallic vias. So that will make the complex shielded structure, and that you can implement the waveguide. What are the advantages? You have low loss, high Q transmission line, much higher Q than the microstrip based line, high power handling capability, not as much high as the waveguide, but it's still higher than the microstrip part. Shielding, electrical shielding is there, automatic shielding is there, easy fabrication process, and easy integration to other circuits. So that I will not go into the detail, but what I can say is that the transition from microstrip to waveguide is very simple compared to what I showed in the last slides. There are those step-by-step configuration was there, but here it is just straightforward, just a tapered transition you can do, and then you can put your these solid state devices with this microstrip line and directly connect it with the SIW technology. So that's how you can make the complete circuit in a planar circuit board. So there are other variants of the waveguide based technology which people also developed using this SI substrate integrated circuit technology. So this is the complete family of the substrate integrated circuits. So the first one I have discussed, this is substrate integrated waveguide. There is this integrated slab waveguide, integrated in radiating dielectric guide. Then also there are these other variants like substrate integrated image dielectric guide and so on. But turned out these are actually air holes to implement this type of structure. But it turned out that this fabrication process is not easy to make. So people thought that most popular would be this SIW technology. One is the fabrication. Second is the transition is very simple. So these two made this technology very, very popular. So that's why the first evolution happened in this millimeter wave technology in the substrate integrated circuit family was based on majorly based on SIW technology only. So I'll show you some of the designs and then I'll discuss what else we have done except this SIW technology. Yeah, so let me go into little bit details of the SIW, how it is designed. So basically this is a current path distribution you can see if you are exciting a SIW. So basically these are the vias, sorry, these are the gaps, and these whites are the vias and these blacks are the gaps. So through these vias, this current path will be there for the dominant TE10 mode, and that's how it can sustain that particular dominant mode of the waveguide. And you can see here the field is contained within these two rows of vias, and that's how it started propagating. But for those modes where the current distribution in the sidewall is along the perpendicular direction of the via, there will be gaps which will help to leak out. So therefore those modes cannot sustain in the SIW technology. So SIW technology can only support TEM0 mode, but not TE0N, TEMN or TMMN mode, which is contrary to the waveguide concept. So in waveguide you can have any modes. Here we have limitation. We cannot have different modes. Only TEM0 modes are possible. How to design it? Well, these types of curves probably you have seen in case of waveguide. This is this propagation constant after cutoff frequency it starts. But here, if you see this cutoff frequency, what is decided from here is not only function of only the width, but also the function of the diameter as well as pitch. So from these data, people have started deriving equations from the curve fitting method, and what people have found is that the best way to comprehend is that this effective width of this SIW will be a function of the physical width as well as the diameter and the pitch. So the most popular one is this, and this, both of them are used very well, and typically they give closely results. So any of them can be used. So this is an important factor you need to keep in mind, that its effective width or electrical width is different from the physical width slightly. Because of this via concept is there, it's not a continuous sidewall, so there will be little bit difference in the cutoff frequency. And also there is some other effects as well. Since this is a periodic structure, there can be a band gap phenomenon can occur, so we don't want that in our operating frequency. Then there will be unrealizable region, is that where your pitch is less than your diameter, which is you cannot fabricate actually. So that is unrealizable region. If you make many more vias, then the substrate can break. So that is over perforated region, which we want to avoid. And lastly, if you make the gaps or pitch between the vias very high, then there is a chance of leakage of the wave. So that is the leakage region. So these four regions are unwanted, and this graded region or the shaded region is the wanted region, where you have to keep your pitch, that is S, and diameter D of the via, so that your device can work as a perfect waveguide. So that is, these conditions are given here. I'm not going into much more detail of that. So these are some experimentally verified data which people popularly use, and you can get good result with this. Yeah, so this is how it will look. This is just a design example. If you take a X-band SIW with these substrates, you will get these dimensions, and this is the typical field distribution, which you can see that dominant TE10 mode field distribution you can get, and the typical performance will be look like this. So you can see after the cutoff frequency, the propagation of the TE10 mode happens. Yeah. Okay. So the same concept can also be extended into the cavity as well. So in case of waveguide cavity, there is 4 walls which are continuous walls along with the top and bottom. So there will be 6 conducting walls in the cavity. The same thing can be extended here. Here will be 4 rows of metallic vias, which will look like this from the top view. This is the top view. So the resonant frequency will be governed by this, where the physical length and physical width will not be effective. There has to be effective length and effective width, which is again the function of the diameter and the pitch of the via. So slight change in the length and width actual from the actual length and width. And if you take an example for this substrate and take this length and width, these are the frequencies you will get. So you can just design and verify those things. And how these resonant frequencies modes are corresponding modes are looking like. So this is the first 3 modes you can expect in a SIW cavity. The first one is the dominant T110 mode, and the next 2 ones are the orthogonal modes T120 and T210 mode. And typically we can use these modes to excite antenna. Now, why we would like to excite antenna with cavity? So this is a very good concept, well-known concept, that if your slot antennas, if you design, it's a bidirectional antenna. It can radiate in both the directions. But most of the applications doesn't want the bidirectional radiation pattern. It wants unidirectional radiation pattern. So the major or commonly used concept is that you use a reflector behind the slot, or you use a cavity behind the slot, which will reflect this back radiation and put it in the forward direction. So you will get a unidirectional radiation as well as high gain. So that concept in planar circuit can be used by using this SIW technology. So how to do that? That I'll show in the next slide. So this is the most basic type of antenna you can think about in using SIW technology, where we are putting a slot antenna almost at the middle of the SIW cavity. And we are trying to excite T120 mode and trying to excite the slot. How we are doing it actually? If you see here, if we put in the middle, both sides the electric fields are oppositely directed. So that means they will be exciting, they are orientatively out of phase, so they will excite the slot, and that will help the slot to radiate. So that's the basic concept. So we will put it here, and then some feed lines will be there to excite the cavity, which will in turn excite the slot antenna. So that you can see in this field distribution as well, the T120 mode field distribution happened here, and that excited the slot. And we have done that studies of how much offset of this feed line as well as the inset of the feed line is required to get the impedance matching. And this is in the Smith chart also. You can see that different combination of the inset and offset is possible, and you can choose any of them, any of the combination to get your impedance matching, as you can see here. So we have taken one particular combination, and then that is mentioned in this paper. So I'm not going into that detail of the dimension. So this is the simulated and measured results, and as you can see, around X band you are getting a very good radiation from this slot antenna. So this is the fabricated design, which is very small but compact cavity backed slot antenna you can get from this type of SIW based design, and you can get a gain around 5 dBi, which is in case of conventional slot it will be around 3 dBi. So you are getting a huge gain, as well as unidirectional radiation pattern. So front to back ratio is also very high. So this is the basic antenna. There are many antennas available in the literature, or we have also done many of the antennas. So I will specifically speak about particular types of SIW based cavity based antennas here in this talk. So the first one is, this is a special type of antenna which we designed, and particularly many Indian research groups later on extended this work in an extensive way. You can find it in the literature. So I'll just explain the first work which we did, and it's a very well cited paper actually. So this is a concept where multi-port antenna came into the picture. So we thought about an antenna. So typically if you see in a transceiver circuit, you will have an antenna, and then you will have a duplexer, which will isolate between transmitting part and receiving part. Now, typically antenna designers only design the antenna, and the duplexer is designed by the microcircuits engineer, and then they are integrated. But when you are integrating 2 different circuits, the total system becomes bulky. Either you are using wires So there will be transition between the circuit to the wire. So there will be some loss as well. So what if you can integrate everything in a complete circuit? Then your loss, design complexity, everything gets resolved. So from that idea, we thought of whether we can make multi-port antenna which will work as a duplexing type of structure. And from there, we got into this particular concept of self-duplexing antenna. So basically, this is talking about an antenna which has multiple ports which are working for different dedicated to different frequencies. One will be for transmitter, one will be for receiver. So this is self-duplexing actually. So this is the top view. So you have this antenna and you have port 1 and port 2. So port 1 will work for one frequency and port 2 will work for other frequency. So this is the field distribution. As you can see, when we are using it for port 1, the port 2 has nothing to do. When we are using it port 2 is nothing to do. So basically there is huge isolation between them. So you can connect your transmitter in one port, receiver in other port, and that's it. So it can work. Now, of course, there are trade-offs. So these isolations will not be as big as a microwave circuit designer can do, but depending on the application, you can definitely, if you want a compact design, you can think about this type of design example. So what is the basic theory, how it is working? So we investigated that, and what we found is that basically this field distribution is actually similar to a half mode substrate integrated waveguide configuration. So basically we came to the conclusion that we have managed to divide this cavity by using this slot. We have managed to divide this cavity into two pieces of half mode which are co-located, and each of them having their own excitation line which are acting as the antenna, and therefore two co-located antennas as such, and that is the system we have developed as a self-duplexing antenna. And we have compared this individual half mode cavity resonant frequency with the original antenna, and we found that yes, it is working like that. So this is the basic theory behind it, and we fabricated it and measured the results. So you can see that the isolation is below 20 dB for both the bands, and they can, and this is the gain plot. As you can see, when you are exciting to port 1, only at that frequency you are getting the radiation, but not at this frequency, and the vice versa. And if you see the radiation pattern of both the frequencies, they are slot antennas and cavity back, so they are getting unidirectional radiation pattern. So in a single SIW cavity, we could manage duplexing, we could manage the radiation, we could manage the unidirectional radiation pattern and high gain as well. So this is very interesting concept we could identify, and people liked it and they extended it extensively. There are lots of designs people have done based on this work. So this is one of the work which I wanted to explain to you. And the next concept is which is also I like this work very much. This is very close to me. So this is actually using SIW cavity hybrid modes for enhancing the gain of the antenna. So what are hybrid modes? Of course, these are the modes we are talking about which are not conventionally available in the cavity. Of course, by using some kind of perturbation, we are trying to get this type of modes. So for this particular design, what we did is that the length to width ratio was very, very high. And what happened is that if you see, the field distribution looked like this one. So now if you see what is the difference in the conventional cavity and this cavity is that if you compare, in your conventional cavity, your field distribution would be sinusoidal in nature. But here, actually, we got this red one, which is not sinusoidal actually. Now, what is it? What is this field distribution actually happening in this cavity? So then we studied a lot and we found out that when you make this length width ratio very high, actually what will happen, your multiple modes will come very close to each other. The first dominant mode T101, then 201, then 301, all of them will come very close to each other. And what will happen is that since they are very close and their field distribution is similar, they will start interacting and create a hybrid mode configuration. And that field actually looks like this one. So this we proved mathematically also. In case of conventional cavity, you would find electric field of this form, okay? And in case of this proposed cavity, you will find the field distribution by this function, where this fx is nothing but combination of T110 base sign, then the 3130, sorry 310, then 510, 710, 910, and this can be a continuous series. We have only showed up to 910, can be more than that. And these are the mathematical calculation based field lines, and as you can see, they are overlapping with the actual field configuration. So this was the proof of our guess or our finding or notion that yes, multiple modes are actually overlapping, and then they are creating this type of special type of hybrid mode distribution. Now the question is how it is going to help in increasing the gain of the antenna. So the idea came that if we can use this field distribution to radiate our antenna, what will happen? So we started using a slot antenna and tried to radiate it. And what we have done the mathematical calculation and found out that once you know the excitation field, you can actually create the far field radiation pattern calculation. And if you plot it, you will see is that your H-plane beam width reduces significantly. And that means if you know that if you reduce the beam width, that means you have a possibility that you can increase the gain. And that's how we could increase the gain of the antenna. And this is the overlapping you can see between the simulated and the calculated. So calculation is from this equation and the simulation is from the ANSOFT HFSS. So our final design was like this with the same field distribution, and this is the experimental and measured results. And you can see that typically we were talking about 5 dB gain, but here we are touching almost 10 dB, and these are the radiation patterns. So we are actually maintaining the unidirectional radiation pattern, but also we are increasing it because we could reduce the beam width in the H-plane. So these are some of the concepts. There are many more concepts to implement a broadband SIW cavity back slot antenna. There are multiband antenna as well. Also there are SIW based slot array antenna. So that is, I think we cannot discuss in this talk. So I'll just put it like this, and I'll go to the next technology which we have worked, which is substrate integrated coaxial line. So this is a little bit variant from form of the substrate integrated circuits which I have discussed so far. So basically what it is, we are trying to implement the coaxial line in a planar circuit. So at 1880 actually this coaxial line was first discussed, and this is the basic configuration. You will have a central conductor, you will have a dielectric, and then you will have an outer conductor. And what we are trying to do was proposed by these three people, and what they said that we can use this type of configuration. There will be a middle layer which will be the central conductor. The top and bottom layer is already there. You can make a side one just like the SIW, so that will make the outer conductor, and the dielectric is already there. So that's how the conventional coaxial line can also be made in a planar circuit domain. But what is the advantage? Why we should use this? So I'll come to that. Why we should use the SICL line. So this is the basic configuration, and if you see the performance, it is working from DC to 50 GHz, just like a conventional coaxial line. It is working basic TEM based transmission line, and the field distribution is almost similar. Of course, we have sandwiched it, so there will be a little bit deformation, but if you just compare, almost similar type of field distribution you can find in this conventional coaxial line as well as the substrate integrated coaxial line. Okay, so why SICL? First of all, huge wide bandwidth of unimodal propagation. So in case of waveguide, it is limited from the cutoff frequency to the cutoff frequency, and cutoff frequency of the dominant mode to the cutoff frequency of the next dominant mode. That is the unimodal bandwidth you can get in a waveguide. But here it is actually from DC to next higher order mode, which is very high. You can design it, and therefore very wide band you can get monomode application, which can be used for your wideband based any circuits actually. Then of course it is a TEM based line, so non-dispersive, which is another advantage. Then it is shielded, so you can use it very easily in the millimeter wave range without thinking about additional issues which are available, which are there in case of microstrip line based technology. And of course it is planar. You can generate high Q circuits with it, and ease of application is also there compared to the conventional coaxial line technology. Okay, so first of all, when we are trying to integrate this type of circuits with our planar circuits, we will need a good transition. So this is the one of the transition we proposed, and this is from microstrip to SiCL technology transition. So this part is the coaxial line, and these two are the microstrip line. We have proposed that how we can generate from quasi-TEM to complete TEM based wave, which I can show in the next slide. So if you see, basically this is the microstrip quasi-TEM based transmission and this field distribution. And when we started putting these additional boundaries at the top, so the field distribution changes because of the change in the boundary condition, and this gradual change in the boundary condition helped from this conversion of the quasi-TEM to the pure TEM based field distribution, and that helped to give us this transition. And this is the fabricated result, and you can see from DC to 40 gigahertz we could show that below minus 20 dB it is working very well, and the phase difference also the group delay is also very low. So this is working very fine for a transmission line purpose, so we can use it for millimeter wave application. So this is our first experiment we did, and then we started working on different applications. So one of the application is this one, dual band balloon. So if you know, in 5G application, people are talking about two different type of spectrum. One is sub-6 gigahertz, another one is 28 gigahertz. So if you think about a system which will support both the spectrum, you will require a circuits which will work at both the bands. Now, if you think about the SIW technology, you cannot do that. For different bands, you have to design different circuits. But in case of SiCL, since it is a unimodal but wideband circuit, you can do that. So we proposed a circuit. This is a dual band balloon which is working at two different spectrum which are widely spaced. And the basic concept, I will not go into the detail of the basic concept. It is you can see details in the paper. So basically what we did is that we tried to make this balloon configuration a dual band balloon by using this open stub. But now, since we are using a SiCL technology, we could make a shielded outer layer which would help it to keep this open stub rather than making it a radiating one. It will be a shielded, so it will actually work as the open stub configuration as well. And therefore, our basic task was to make this particular T junction to work as it is actually working as a lambda by 4 line. And I'm not going into the details of the calculation. So ultimately, we want this ABCD matrix from this T junction. And if you solve this, you will find out particular relation of the theta 1 and theta 2. So the theta 1 is this length and theta 2 is this length, as well as the Z1 and Z2 also you need to find out. And the equations are given here. And the PQ you can choose. RV is the ratio of the frequency ranges what you want to choose here as your spectrum 1 and spectrum 2. But when this equation is there is another thing you need to also consider, that what are the realizable impedances you can think about. Your Z1 and Z2 you can choose depending on your P1 and P and Q. But what will happen is that the Z1 and Z2 what you will get, you may not be able to realize because of the fabrication difficulty. So we plotted it. So what we assume that up to 150 ohm we can probably fabricate. So keeping that limit and keeping our frequency ranges as such that there will be around ratio of the 4, we found out that P equal to 1 and Q equal to 1 will be best one for us. And accordingly, we have managed to calculate this Z1, Z2 and theta 1 and theta 2. And this is the result we got. So you see that around 6 gigahertz we are getting a balloon configuration, as well as at 20 gigahertz we are getting a balloon configuration. So this is a dual band balloon, single circuit working at two different bands. One is microwave, one is millimeter wave, but still it is working very fine. And this is the typical at two bands, what is the difference between amplitude imbalance and the phase imbalance, you can see. Okay, so I'll quickly go into the other parts as well. So we have designed some crossover as well. This is a wideband crossover working from DC to 20 gigahertz, and typical this is the layer by layer configuration. And one of the specialty of this crossover is that actually in many of the crossover design you will find out that there is a path difference between the two paths from port 1 to port 2 and port 3 to port 4. There will be a path difference, but in this case there is zero path, almost zero path difference we could achieve while maintaining wide bandwidth. So the studies are there. I am not going into the detail of that, I'll just skip these slides. So basically this design actually shows that there is a trade-off between the isolation between the ports, between the paths, and the insertion loss. So you can increase the isolation, but your insertion loss will increase. So you have to trade off. And we, based on the studies, we fixed our dimension. And this you can see that if you are exciting between port 1 and it is going to port 2, but not port 3 or port 4, and the vice versa. And this is the fabricated design, and these are the results you can get. So yeah, so it is wide bandwidth. From this much wide bandwidth, as far as our knowledge, was not proposed. So this is the first one from DC to 20 GHz, and we could generate very low group delay as well as almost zero path difference we could demonstrate. So this is the specialty of this particular design. So I'll just briefly go. How much time I have? Okay, I don't know. Anyway,
you have Dr. Somaba, you have time, so you please go ahead.
Okay. Okay.
You have 10 to 15 minutes more time. So
okay.
Please
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next design was filter. So this is the first design we could demonstrate the effect of the outer conductor. So we could actually demonstrate that we could perturb the coaxial TEM outward TEM line, TEM field lines we could perturb, and we could demonstrate a filtering structure with that. So this is a stepped impedance resonator based approach we could take, and this is the coupling scheme you can see, and these are the different modes of this ring resonator. And what we did is that these two orthogonal modes, we perturbed it to create this filtering configuration. So this is the fabricated result, and this is the filter we could generate with a very, if you can see the size is very small. In this SiCL technology we could demonstrate, and these are the different operations. So basically the specialty of this filter is that if you see in the lower end and the upper end, there is a huge out of band performance which we could achieve with a very simple structure. This is specialty of the SiCL technology, that its next higher order modes are very far apart, so you can actually get a very good out of band performance. Inherently this advantage is there in this technology, so we utilize that, and then we got this very good result with a very high selectivity filter and very good out of band performance. And we also proposed a new type of resonator based on this SiCL technology. So basically what we are trying to implement here is a SiCL cavity. So basically there is a middle layer as well as the top and bottom, and there is a via layer structure. So you can think about a very low impedance coaxial line which are terminated in the both end by the short circuit. So that's how we have made this cavity actually, and we utilized it for a millimeter wave antenna. So we have put a slot antenna here, and typically this is very small size compared to the SIW based design. Actually, if you compare the dimension, you'll find out its dimension is very small. And of course, since it is a SiCL cavity, so its field distribution will not be as similar as the SIW one. So we've studied the field distribution. We found out that there are even and odd mode based field distributions are possible, and these are the mode charts you can see. So you utilized the first mode here, but yes, there are other modes which you can think about how to utilize them. So these studies are going on. Even anyone also can think about how to utilize those modes actually for in your purpose in millimeter wave technology. So what we did is that we put the slot antenna here. What actually helped is that it part of the field distribution in the cavity in such a way that at the both sides the field distribution is the magnitude of the field is different, which helped to excite the slot antenna, and then it started radiating. So this is the current distribution, and this is the field distribution you can see for this slot antenna. And we fabricated it and measured it, so it is working at 20 gigahertz, which is one of the major band in 5G technology. And this is the radiation pattern. So since it is a cavity back slot, so you will get a unidirectional radiation pattern with high gain, so that we achieved. So yeah, if I want to conclude, there are multiple technologies available. So SIW is one of the popular one, but this SiCL is also very promising. And to be very specific, in our group, we are actually trying to develop the whole systems range the whole microwave circuit range with the help of this SiCL technology. So there is a huge possibility, but there will be some challenges depending on the application. Some of them will work, and yeah. So anybody interested in this technology can work on that, and based on the available literature. And if you have any question, you can also contact me. I'll be happy to answer. So this is my group. These are my PhD students and project staff. And this is my contact information. If you have any query, you can directly come back to me. And so thank you all for listening to the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Soumabho.
Thank you
For such a wonderful and informative talk. And I think that our all research scholars and the all participants, I think your research works have enlightened by this talk. And I believe that definitely these kind of informations will help you further if you are designing something on substrate integrated waveguide. So with this, the webinar is open for question and answer. And I request all participants to directly ask questions to the speaker. Please turn on your microphone and you can ask the question directly to the speaker. We can take a couple of questions. We have time, few more time. So if anyone have any questions, please.
Maybe I'll stop sharing.
So once again, I request our participants to ask your questions directly to speaker. Somik, you are writing something. Do you have any questions? If you have, you can directly ask him, ask the speaker. Am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Okay. So if I think no one has.
Yeah, I think in the chat box someone has.
Yes, we can take some few questions. So where do you know? Yeah, you can see the chat box and you can answer. You can reply to the questions.
So there are actually many foundries in India who are actually doing this PCB fabrication. In almost every state there are. In fact, in IEEE Kerala, if I talk about, there are almost QSAT and all those institutes are there where this PCB fabrication is there. So yeah, you can approach any of them for this fabrication purpose. I hope I have answered your question. Okay.
Yes, any more questions? We can take one or two more questions.
Hello, sir. Hello?
Yes, I can hear.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Good evening, sir.
I think there is a connection problem. You can type probably.
AW antenna can work perfectly at 100 gigahertz. This type of antenna will work, sir. Yes. If you want to design such antenna,
Maybe you can type probably. I cannot hear you. There is one question I can see. Can we implement all the functions as conventional waveguide other than no number of modes? Can we implement all the functions as conventional waveguide other than number of modes? I'm not clear about the question. I think the question is referred to the design of the high gain antenna hybrid mode. So the concept was that this hybrid mode we got, and we wanted to study that how it is actually Dr. Dey, you are muted. Dr. Dey, you are muted.
Sorry. Yeah, I think it's fine now.
Yeah. So so this question, I am not very clear what exactly the question is. Can we implement all the functions as conventional waveguide rather than number of modes? So basically, this is in what I can say is that design, high gain antenna design, there was a particular type of field distribution which is not conventional, and we tried to analyze it and found that yes, we can analyze it in this way, that it is actually a summation of multiple modes. So accordingly, the function will come, and then you can create the mathematical formula for that. I hope I have answered your question. I am not very sure what exactly was your question. Okay, next question was, what kinds of microstrip transition is used for SICL? Is there any losses due to multi-layer structure of SICL during fabrication? Okay, you can see the fabricated measured result also as well. The insertion loss is not as much. It's well below around 0.8 dB. So no, there is no such loss. And the microstrip transition I have already shown there. The basic principle also I have shown, so you can follow that. Next question was whether the SIW antenna will work more than 100 gigahertz. Yes, people are trying at 100 gigahertz and around terahertz level. People are trying that, but one of the problem may come in the fabrication process, because your via is dimension will be very crucial around 100 gigahertz. So you may have to think about something else for that, some other technology. People have tried a couple of them. So yeah, you can go into literature and see. Yeah, this is, I think, the last question I can see in the chat.
Okay, so if anyone has any more questions, they can ask. Okay, so I think no one has more questions. So once again, I thank you, speaker, for finding your valuable time and for spending your time and sharing your thoughts and deeds with us under the Antenna Propagation Society Kerala chapter. So we are really thankful, and I believe that your research works have enlightened many of our research minds. So, and I also believe that if anyone has any more questions, so as the speaker have already shared his contact details, they can email to the speaker for more questions. So thanks once again to all participants for your time also. And I also sincerely thanks Dr. Soumya Mukherjee.
Yes, it's my pleasure to be able to present in IEEE Kerala, and hope in future when this pandemic will be over, I will be able to visit your institute.
Yes.
Yes.
We really want you to. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. So I believe that definitely when everything is will be saturated, then hopefully we'll call you and invite you in our institute, and you can also give a talk. So with this, thank you very much, and happy Teachers' Day to you and to all, I think, participants.
Thank you.
Thank you.